Hello and welcome to tonight's Ask a Master Food Preserver. So tonight I am your host, Linda Wilkins, and on our Q&A monitor for tonight will be Robin. If you have any questions, please send them. She'll be answering them or sending them directly to us. We have, of course, Paige, Deirdre, Nina, and of course, Travis. And this will be recorded and we will post it to our website at a later time. So here's a little Zoom housekeeping. Please mute your mics, unless you're speaking, of course. And when you leave, please complete the surveys. It's very important to us that you do. Okay. Are we not sharing? Can you guys see my screen or not?
MC, yeah.
Yes, it's a little zoomed in, but may just be my end.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's not fitting into it's exceeding the size of the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Oopsie.
Can you see it? After a brief introduction, we're going to go through this. So if you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand and then we'll call on you. You can unmute your mic and then we will answer your questions. And if you do not see the Q&A feature, you can look at the bar. It's normally in the right-hand corner. If not, hit the more, and then you can look through the list and find the Q&A to post your questions. So feel free to speak up. So who are we? We are the online program, that community outreach online based grant funded volunteer program within the UC, the University of California Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources, that provides up-to-date research-based information on food safety and preservation. That's bad. So why do we do this? What is our mission? To keep Californians safe as well as anyone else, and to use culturally appropriate research-based practices to safely preserve food in the home, reduce food waste, increase food security, and provide an engaging way for Californians and anyone else to explore healthy foods. So, disclaimers: the views, the thoughts, and opinions expressed here completely do not represent the University of California. They are our own, and the use of the UC name and any form of abbreviations are not ours. We are not endorsing any particular other organizations, products, or services. It is completely us and not the UC system. So, sorry, that's our disclaimer. Sorry. Now, before we get into the questionings, we have Deidre, and she's going to give us a little lead in about preserving the harvest. Deidre?
Yes. Hi there. Yeah, preserving the harvest. I think that this is a really exciting time. We're getting all of our plants in the ground, all the tomatoes and the peppers, and for some people, part of the country we are. And it feels like a time that you can just kind of relax and think, okay, now we just need to wait until, we start getting our fruit and vegetables. But I think that what people don't really think about is when you start getting all that produce and what you're going to do with it. And I think this is a great time to sit outside, enjoy the weather, and just start getting your recipes together, get some ideas. It's, before you know it, you have way too many zucchini or cucumbers and you don't know what to do with it. And uh, I think one thing that's really difficult is when that does happen and you just try to start shoving everything into the refrigerator and things just start getting older and you start giving things away or whatever because you don't know what to do. And as this happens also, you're losing quality, nutrient content, things like that. So if you can plan right when you get you're harvesting your vegetables, you know what you're going to do with it, then you don't have to worry about it taking up most of the space in your refrigerator and getting old. So I've definitely done the juggling act many times, and it's so great when I have had a plan. So, this is a great, we have lots of recipes on the website. But also even if you see something that you really want to do, by all means, you can try it out and just put it in the refrigerator, and store it there and just play. I think it's a really fun time to experiment. And another thing I think about is we've had fruit trees that have matured over the last few years. And uh, the first couple years, you're thinking, okay, this is the amount of fruit I'm planning on. And then like the third or fourth year, it absolutely explodes. And then, you're like, okay, I had a plan. I had a plan for this much fruit, and and now what, so even, I like to keep, ideas and links on my phone. You could just put in notes, put the links or whatever, send it to yourself, email it to yourself, get those recipes ready. Because I remember we have an elderberry tree, and I don't know, maybe it's because it's native, but we're in that about the third year, we probably had like 25 pounds. And I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing. We're going to dehydrate some. I'm making syrup with some, I'm making jam with some. And then last year we probably had 50 pounds, 50 pounds. And I was just overwhelmed, and thankfully I had some friends that came over and helped me pick the fruit off the clusters and dehydrated something. But I bought a chest freezer, threw a lot in there. But it's really great if you can just have a plan. And anyway, so that's what I think about with herbs. You're going to end up with lots of herbs. We're just talking about dehydrating them. Just let them dry. And you know, dehydrated things take up the least amount of space, so that's really great. You can use them for yourself. You can use them in your chicken coop. You can, you know, just put them in jars, and if you put them in jars, you can hold them for the winter. So that's what that's what I kind of I think about, like, at this time is about getting those recipes, getting those ideas together, and being prepared for when it happens, because I feel like it ends up happening before you even know it. So that is my
Sorry about that. Thank you, Deidre, for that. And planning for your future harvest is always a very, very good way to go, especially when you're preserving. So I'm going to say now, raise your hand if you have any questions, or did we have some questions come in from the board, Robin?
We have one question. Lori Holler asks, and she is willing to, if there are follow-ups on the question, she's glad to speak directly to them. We can unmute her. So she's as a pressure canning question. She used the Ball Mason Jar website, the beef stew recipe, and tailored it a bit by omitting potatoes and adding cooked bacon. She processed it according to the instructions on the Ball website for an hour and a half. And then she wants to know if the soup/stew, and I don't understand, she is staff, and I don't know, with the added cooked bacon.
Probably means safe.
It's safe. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's safe. Oh, okay, yeah, maybe. So I leave it up to the panel.
All right, thank you. So it's a multiple question. So let's start with she changed the recipe and omitted some items and added bacon. So is it safe to can, I guess, is the actual question she wants us to answer. So generally we say stick to the recipe, especially if it's a safe recipe. But for like a soup, I remember Paige actually did this pressure cooking recipe. Well, not this recipe, but she did a pressure cooking on soups.
Right. So the key here, and Shalinda's absolutely correct, is that generally our advice is stick to the recipe. And but for you, you omitted potatoes, which starches are actually one of the things that are a little challenging in pressure canned things. So by omitting the starch, you did not create a new problem, which is good. And bacon is something that you can pressure can. So the key to changing a recipe for pressure canning is if you're either not following a tested recipe, you want to make sure that you're only including things that they themselves, the individual items, have been tested. So there is bacon in other safe, tested, pressure canned recipes. So we know that it's safe to do. However, with bacon, you have the addition of a significant amount of fat. And fat can be a problem in pressure canned recipes because it can get, essentially during the canning process, as the liquid is being pushed up in the can, it can get into the rim and it can create, it can give you a weak seal, essentially, because there's like a layer of fat between the rim of the jar and that sealing compound in the lid. So you'd want to make sure that if you are adding something like bacon, that you're really defatting it very well. I would even recommend probably cooling the stew, like in the refrigerator, removing the fat that's once it's hardened, then you would reheat it in order to can't because you want to pressure can using a hot soup going into a hot jar. So you'd want to reheat it back up to probably just below boiling temperature. I believe it's 180 degrees to make sure that you're not adding the additional fat because that can be problematic. You're always going to have a little bit when you include meat. I shouldn't say always, but often, but you want to minimize it as much as possible. So I hope that answers your question. So is it safe to eat? Yes. As long as you have a good seal. And you can test your seal after you've pressure canned your food. You're going to want to wait 24 hours and then gently don't go 2 feet off the counter in case you don't have a good seal, but just try lifting the jar from the lid and it should hold. If it doesn't, you're going to put the lid back on, you're going to put the band on, and you'll put it in the refrigerator and then just eat it within the next couple of days. It's not wasted. So hopefully that answered your question.
Okay, thank you. So we have a question from Sarah Donaldson. So can you unmute yourself, Sarah?
Yeah, thank you. So I got very brave after one of our food labs and did pressure canned raw chicken, and I did a raw chicken pack, but I ran out of jars. So I had one more thing of chicken. This could have been filled up, but I didn't have yet another jar to use the rest of the chicken that I bought. So I decided to stop, and this jar doesn't have very much in it. Let's see, what's the best way for me to show you? Yeah, there we go. So it just had a little piece in it. It definitely got hot enough. The juices were bubbling like everything else, and it did seal, and it sealed well. And my question is, obviously it has far more headspace than it should have. But since it did seal, is this safe to use, or should I get rid of it because it has this, 8 inches of headspace or whatever? So that's my question.
It's me again. So that does have a significant amount of headspace. And while it's probably safe, we wouldn't, because it's not a full jar. And so the recommendation would be, when it comes to especially meat or high protein, these low acid foods, I would put it in your refrigerator and then just consume it. Have chicken salad this weekend, enjoy. It's not, I would say it's not unsafe for you to eat it because it is fully cooked, but it may not be safe for long-term shelf storage. So putting it on the shelf in your pantry or your garage or whatever you store, not recommended, because when it comes to our health, probably is not good enough. But it's certainly safe to consume, but you just want to do it soon. So again, in the fridge, and then have some delicious chicken salad or a chicken soup or chicken pot pie or whatever your chickeny heart desires.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Jessica, you're up next. You're gonna unmute yourself.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I water bath canned strawberry jam for the first time. And I had a question. So I left the, 1/4 inch headspace for that. But if I look in that space, I can see like some of my like little pieces of strawberry touching the inside of the lid a little bit, almost like the strawberry had kind of floated up. And I didn't know if that was fine. Like the seal, it's sealed, and everything, but I can just see in like maybe one or two of the cans, some of the chunks, kind of touching the inside of the lid. And so I didn't know if that was safe. And then I scraped the foam off. And so I wasn't sure if you could leave the foam, before you canned it. So those were my two questions. I hope that makes sense.
Yes. So normally if you're canning and water bathing in this case, sometimes you will get some of them little particles at the top. So is it safe? If you followed all the rules, it would be. However, it's going to discolor over time. And so a lot of people would say just eat it first. And that's my point of view, which is eat it first so that it doesn't have the chance to discolor. Is it bad? No. Can you eat it? Yes. Is it safe if you followed all the other rules and had a rougher recipe? Yes. Is it irritating? Yes. Could you have gotten one of the other problems? Absolutely. Just remember to look at it, look for discoloration of the rest of it, look for if it bubbles, smells off, or if the lid just decides to come off, then don't eat it. Please toss it immediately. It is not good, and you should probably consider the rest of the batch bad as well. But I'm going to assume none of that's going to happen. So don't worry.
Mhm.
However, as far as the foam, yeah, I've done it both ways, and you can do it both ways. You can actually take the foam off before jarring it and then doing the water bathing, or you can leave it on. Now, it's the appearance. It doesn't give you a very clean appearance when it's got a jam, especially like on strawberry. So it'll look like a white foam if you don't actually take the foam off before jarring it. But it's an appearance. It's your personal choice if you want the foam or not. But I take it off. But that's because I normally give some of my jam away as well. So, but let's hear what some of the other panelists have to say.
I make a ton of jam. And to your point of sometimes some of it sort of during the canning process, little bits get up around the rim or even on the top of or not the rim, but the edge of the inside edge of the top of the jar and the lid. And as Shalinda said, it is 100% safe to consume. It's just that that part's sort of sitting on the top and it can get a little, it oxidizes and gets a little dry. 100% safe to consume. That's different than, of course, if the jar isn't sealed. That's a whole other animal, as Shalinda stated. And then back to the thing with the foam is, if you're planning on entering your jam in the state fair, you're going to want to go ahead and do all that skimming. But I know I do something kind of in between. I do skim the majority of the foam off, but I don't let myself get crazy about it. I don't worry about getting every last little bit. I sort of scoop off what is easily removed, and then I decide to move on with my life and be happy. So, and I make a lot of jam, not just strawberry, and it's true with all of it.
Okay, thank you. And next up is Thalia. You can unmute yourself.
Hi. Thanks to the hosts and the co-hosts. And I just wanted to say before I ask my question, I wanted to say hi to Sarah. She's my old-time friend and coworker. I haven't seen her in years, so sorry for that. I just wanted to say hello. Um, I got my mom into canning last year, and she's on as well. Her name's Zakia, and I just wanted to ask the panel, what do you prefer? Because when you're talking about fruits, I always hear people talking about jams. But I did like a water bath and I did fruit juices, and I wanted to hear if you guys have ever done that. I just haven't tasted it, and I'm a little nervous.
I normally only do smaller things. So I've done apple juice. I know it sounds weird, but and it cooks the juice. So if you have that kind of taste and you're okay with it, it's fine. as long as you followed a recipe that's reputable and did it. But it'll change the taste depending on what you're doing. So certain fruits do not can well when you juice them, and some do. Apples, like I said, grapes. I've never tried strawberries, but I have to find a recipe for it before I try it. So it's
Yeah.
fine. And if you want to do that, go for it.
So how long did you preserve it for?
Ooh. Okay. So for me and my family, we go through things fast. So I think the last jar lasted maybe, I want to say a month and a half before we drank it all.
Okay.
Yeah, because if I don't have a like concentrate, like I made some strawberry lemon concentrate, which is basically a syrup. And if I don't have something else for the kids to drink, they're drinking teas, waters, chocolate milks. So the apple juice is like a quick drink for them. So if they see it, they'll drink it. So yeah, I don't know how long it could last because in my family things go really fast.
Okay. Thank you.
I was gonna also add the strawberry lemonade she's mentioning is actually in the ball recipe book, and you actually pressure can it, and it's a concentrate, so it's strawberry lemonade concentrate. So you just mix it with water. It's actually great to have on hand, especially if you have kids when you want something like that quickly. And then fruit juice freezes really well, and I know it takes up a lot of freezer space, and that can be a challenge because again, you can fruit juice. There are recipes for it on our website as well as the National Center for Home Food Preservation on how to do that safely. But it does give you a cooked fruit flavor instead of sort of the fresher fruit flavor. But if you like that, then it's perfectly safe to do.
Thank you.
Marta, do you want to ask your question live? You sent it also in the Q&A, but please unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay. So Marta has two questions. One, she would like to begin fermenting cucumbers and other vegetables and would like to know where to get good/tested recipes.
Cucumbers. So she's looking for like lacto fermented pickles. Is that what she's going for?
It looks like at least fermenting, she said fermenting cucumbers and other vegetables. So she's not saying pickling, she's saying fermenting. So I'm thinking, yeah, she wants to.
Okay. We use a recipe from the University of Colorado for cabbage. Did I say that right? I'm sorry. Sauerkraut. Sorry. Have to think of what it is after we make it. As far as pickles, I don't remember who our go-to for that is. And
I think I do remember that. And the ball recipes, or Bernardin is the Canadian site for that's associated with ball jars. Their recipes for cucumber and cabbage fermentation are the ones that we use.
so we use a few of them, but you can always go to our website, and in our resource area, we actually do give a listing of all the recipes we use. So that is going to be the easiest way to figure out some time tested and resource based recipes if you're looking to do that. Let's see. So I'm sharing my screen, so I can't really go there and show you so much.
I'll look for the link and put it.
Yeah. Let me see. Let me stop sharing and I'll see if I can't find a way to get that to you. But let's see. But we have a great resource library if you are looking for recipes that are that are based and sorry,
Now, Travis has posted in the chat
thank you.
or in the quick Q&A our fermentation recipes page.
Thank you, Travis. So yes, we do have a page that you can Let me just go back to mine. My apologies. Oops. Right. And this is not working the way I wanted it to. So we'll go here. I'll share that. Okay, sorry about that. So yes, I could not find that link that Travis put into the thing. However, if you are looking for it, like I said, our recipes are available for everyone. I don't know what that is. So do we have any additional questions while I
We do.
Okay.
Marta has a second question,
okay.
and she says, is the National Center for Home Food Preservation going to do any testing for freeze drying? And where can I get good recipes, and what is the best post freeze dried storage?
I don't know if the National Center for Home Preservation will be doing that or not because they haven't announced it. They basically, we won't know until they tell us. As far as recipes for it, the best thing you can do is use the manufacturer's guide because it's not something we currently teach or cover. I know there's some hope that we will in the future, but right now we don't. So I don't have any recipes that are good or recommendations besides the manufacturer. As far as post storage, you're going to store it like any dehydrated fruit, vegetable, or anything else. You're going to want to either put it in maybe a Mylar bag with a oxygen absorber, or you're going to want to put it in a jar and vacuum the air out, or something to that effect, because it's just a dried food once you freeze dry it, and it's going to want to absorb moisture. So you're probably going to have to, I'm sorry, you're also going to have to add in a moisture absorber. Otherwise, it will take some moisture out of the air. Anyone else have any experience with freeze-dried foods and would like to speak on it?
I'm actually about to post a link to an article from our own newsletter on freeze drying at home. Tim Long, who is a master food preserver and master gardener, is also an avid freeze dryer. So I'm posting a link to an article he's recently posted on that very topic.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that helps. All right. Any other questions?
Just trying to see if there was anything in the chat. We have Paige has posted the pickle resources and the freeze drying at home. Thank you. Oh, great. Jessica has another question. So Jessica, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hey, so I also had a question. So I'm growing cucumbers for the first time, or the pickling cucumbers for the first time, and I'm hoping to pickle them. But what is the best way to kind of store them until I get enough to pickle?
Go ahead, Paige. You know you want to tell her. Or Nina.
Oh, me? Sorry. I was like, I'm still freeze drying.
Well,
That's a hard one. And there's not really so you need to find a place that's cool and relatively humidity free. But cucumbers do not have a super long shelf life. So you may need to do a small batch. And I understand when you're growing things at home, it's hard because we don't get always that gigantic harvest all at once. And that can be a little disappointing. My own family, we grow a lot of fruit in the backyard, and sometimes I think, oh, I'm going to be able to make apricot jam, and then between my kids and my husband, and it's like there's 7 apricots. So I feel the pain, but the reality of it is that you want to make pickles out of them when they're at their peak. You can store them again, cool, fairly dry. The refrigerator is kind of the crisper door in your refrigerator is an obvious place. With the paper towel can help to absorb moisture so you don't get mildew. You can try washing them and drying them really thoroughly so that you don't get mildew on the outside. That'll help slow down that process. But essentially, ripening and rotting are the same process. It's just whether or not we like it or we don't like it. And so once you pick it, it's happening. And so you're kind of, there's no way to sort of do really long storage of fresh cucumbers in order to sort of save them for pickles. But you can definitely extend their refrigerator life by washing them really thoroughly, dry them really thoroughly, and then storing them again in a cold like refrigerators because it's fairly dry. Minimize the humidity as much as you can, and you'll extend their life a little bit till maybe you get a few more. But you may find that you just need to do a small batch.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, are there any other questions that anyone has that they'd like to ask about food preserving? No?
Okay, hang on. Okay, Sarah asks, I have not been able to find a recipe for crisp jalapenos. Mine get mushy. Can I add pickle crisp? Would that help? So I guess she's asking about the crisp jalapeno pickles, or she's canning them. I'm not sure exactly. Sarah, do you want to,
Sure.
unmute yourself and clarify?
Yeah, sure. And it's actually for my sister-in-law. She grows huge numbers of jalapenos and cans them every year, but they're always mushy. So they have a nice jalapeno flavor, but the texture is not appealing. You know how if you buy commercial canned jalapenos, they're typically kind of crunchy, or like the ones that you put on your nachos. And I was thinking, so I did look for recipes, but couldn't find any that talked about keeping peppers crisper when you're canning them. And they are pickled. So I was wondering if putting pickle crisp in would help the way it helps with cucumbers.
Calcium chloride, which is what pickle crisp is, reacts with the cell walls and just helps sort of firm up the cell walls. Um, and it is safe to use with pickled peppers. But we don't have a recommendation on sort of, I guess we can look it up, but the internet's amazing. Um, but how much you would use might be a little bit of a guessing game. You might have to do a little experimenting, but calcium chloride is safe to use. Um, with peppers. Calcium chloride, by the way, is often used, just in case you're thinking it sounds like a scary chemical, is often used to stabilize even things like dairy products for making, like if you try to make cheese out of ultra high pasteurized milk, they add calcium chloride to that in order to stabilize and get a curd to form. So it's put in all kinds of food products. You're eating it whether you realize it or not, most likely. And that's all the pickle crisp is. So it is a safe additive, but how much, we'd have to do a little bit of research.
Okay, thank you.
Anne has a question. It's specific. It says, does any MFP own a harvest right freeze dryer? And can you answer a question about the exact process to open the dryer properly at the end of the drying process and check for doneness? Does anyone have one here?
Unfortunately, though, and you do have a couple of MFPs who have harvest right freeze dryers. Neither of them are on the panel today. However, that would be a great question to send into our hotline. We have an Ask an MFP hotline that you can access through our website. I'll see if I can, or maybe somebody can throw that into the chat. And that would get then forwarded to those MFPs who are into freeze drying. Freeze dryers are expensive, and so they're not something that is widely used. We can look up there, or I'll look up the hotline and see if we can put it into the chat.
All right. Well, thank you for that question. And Paige did say that there was an article in our newsletter about freeze drying. So if you're interested, you can always join our newsletter, and I'll have more information about that at the end of the class. So do we have any additional questions?
I don't have any questions right at the moment, but I encourage people to, oh, yay, Zakia has posted a question. She says, I'm new to pressure canning. Can you recommend a good YouTube resource? I own the USDA book, but I need something simpler.
Well, we actually have a YouTube channel and we are posting some of our own videos there, including the one that Paige did on pressure canning. So if you're looking for the video, it will be up soon. And I believe there are 2 classes, but one is not on pressure canning and one is on atmospheric canning and water bathing, and one is actually on pressure canning, which Paige did teach. And Paige?
And something else I would highly recommend, this is what I did when I first bought a pressure canner, is it is highly likely that the manufacturer of your pressure canner has videos on YouTube, and they'll have how-to videos specific to your pressure canner. And I highly recommend watching those. It's much less painful than trying to read that whole manual. And again, it'll be really specific to your pressure canner with the specific purpose of making you into a happy, satisfied customer. So it'll be really targeted to exactly the piece of equipment that you own and how to use it successfully. And I highly recommend, and they're usually not very long and professionally produced. And then, I would also caution you, there are a lot of videos online from, again, I will argue, well-intentioned people who are very into pressure canning and food, what's the word I want to use, being sort of food self-sufficient and all these things, but they also often follow processes that we absolutely do not recommend. Many of them are sort of based in antiquity. So they're doing things with the idea of like, my grandmother did it this way. It's like, but yes, but your grandmother also probably got sick. So please make sure that if you're, I would go to the manufacturer, like just Google the name of your manufacturer and your pressure canner model and watch that video, and then make sure that any other information you're looking at is coming from either UCANR, so the UC Master Food Preservers, or the agricultural extension offices from any of the states. So Colorado State has a great extension program, Cornell University, many of them are also producing videos and posting them on YouTube. And those are all good resources to give good, safe, and tested processes for safely pressure canning food.
Thank you. Iffy has her hand raised.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. And sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah, thank you for hosting this session. This is my first, and I am calling in or joining from Canada. My question is on recipes, rather, how do you get other recipes to be tested? And what I mean by that is, so for someone like me, I am, first time just kind of learned so many things, reading books, going on your website and other websites and buying, trusted books. However, there are no recipes or tested recipes for, I would say, food outside of, the Western food or the ones that you have in books. And my question is, how can I maybe get recipes from my ethnic food to be tested so that I can something with a safe recipe? Like, I don't want to improvise. A lot of the food that we eat from my home country are not canned, there are no recipes for them. And it would be nice to kind of have those done. Just wondering how that can happen if it's ever a thing.
It is a thing, and there are several ways you can go about it. So some universities will offer the opportunity to have your recipes tested, but you have to send it in to them. And it's not a short process. You're talking years. Another way is to simply request it from Ball or Bernadine or any of the manufacturers who do a lot of canning themselves, and they might actually use your recipe in one of their books. And a lot of the recipes will be tested, and then the universities will test them as well. So when we say they're tested, we mean they're tested by multiple sources. It's not just one source. So that is 2 ways you can do it. One is to contact a manufacturer who already tests recipes and see if they'll add your recipe to their menu of things to test for. Another way is to try the extensions and see if any of them are accepting recipes to test, and they could also do it. But like I said, it's a long process. It's not a short by any means.
Okay. No, that's good to know. Thank you so much. Yeah.
To just let everybody know too, as Linda said, this is a kind of a known issue, and it's been brought up. So the entities that do this kind of work know that we are looking for recipes beyond sort of the Western diet. Um, we within our own little group, we had a whole conversation a few months ago about Nepalis. Nepalis are delicious, super nutritious, inexpensive if not free, and yet we have like one recipe for them. The real issue around a lot of this, frankly, though, is money, because it costs money to do this testing. It's not just an issue of going into a kitchen and making it and seeing if it's okay. They actually undergo like rigorous testing, and then this stuff is published in academic journals. So it's a process. But you bring up your concern is well founded and definitely heard. You're not the first person, and one of the best things you can do is contact your local extension and let them know you want this, that there's a demand for these kinds of things. And it doesn't matter if and you said you're in Canada.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah, Canada does not have a master food preserver program or
Mhm.
even an equivalent. But you could certainly contact just the general, like, like California's master food preserver program, or I don't know where in Canada you are, but I know North Dakota has one. North Dakota State has one. Some of the Montana, I believe, has one. So some of the neighboring U.S. states that are on the border, to let them know that there is a market for these things. The squeaky wheel gets oil. Can't hurt, might help.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that a little bit, just that if it's possible to find a recipe that is similar, but the spices are different, then, there is the option, if you're just changing the spices, if you're just changing, the stock or something like that, then these are things that would be safe to change, and would be safe to be able to, to substitute your spices or whatever, if you can find something that's similar,
Oh, no, that's good to know. I know that was something I kind of shared in, I think it was one of the Facebook groups that I belong to, and just kind of asking if it would help to kind of modify the spices and everything. And most of the responses I got was, well, if it's not in the recipe and all of that, it's not advisable to do it. So I just never bothered. Yeah.
The key to modifying things is that, I mean, we only teach tested recipes, but keep in mind that we're trying to teach you all the process. We're not the canning police. But the key is understanding, when you look at a recipe, a canning recipe, what are the components that are there to make sure that it's safe. So for example, the balance of acid and water type liquids, and what percentage of that acid. All those things are super important for food safety. But if you
Mhm,
decide that you want to add um, dill seed instead of cumin, that's for flavor. You would not
mhm,
want to significantly modify the quantity of
mhm,
spices. But the difference between regular paprika and smoked paprika is that's a flavor thing. So the key is educating yourself to understand what about your recipe is there for safety and to
mhm.
ensure a safe quality product, and what is there for flavor.
Yeah.
And often those flavoring agents, again, maybe I'm trying to think of examples, but like I recently actually canned something that called for cumin and I substituted dill because that's the flavor I was going for. But the overall quantity of spice in the jar was the same. I just used different ones.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good to know. Thank you.
And, you can always send in the recipe to, email it in to Master Food Preservers, and, somebody can take a look at it and say, okay, yeah, this could work, or this could not work, and just ask what you would be interested in, in changing.
And
Okay.
you could even post a link to it to our Facebook page and ask, and that'll get to us as well.
Oh, great. Okay. Good to know. Thank you. Yeah.
Sure.
And just so you know, another way of doing that is if your recipe has certain ingredients, you can make the ingredients separate that you know are safe and then add them together at the end. So my family makes a bean and rice with a hand hock. We have no recipes for that. One, because we have rice in it, and two, because the way we cook our beans is different. So what I do is I pressure can the beans, just plain beans. And then when I decide to make it, I make the broth with my family style and then add the beans and rice that are already cooked, the beans that are already cooked back into the rice. And that gives me my family's beans and rice, our spices and our broth without actually having to make the beans, which is the longest part of the process. So
Mhm.
that's another way.
Great. Okay. No, these are great examples. Thank you. Yeah.
I have a question from Zakia. She says, do you pressure can basically during the winter months?
I do. I do most of my pressure canning during the winter months because it's really hot in the summer. So depending on what I'm actually canning for certain vegetables, I have to do it in the summer just because that's when they come up. But mostly, most of the time when I pressure can, it's going to be the end of October, November, December, and sometimes in January. And I do a lot of soups, a lot of beans, and then I pretty much have what I need for almost 6 months to a year. So for me, yeah, winter months are the pressure canning months for me.
Yeah, I pressure can and can all year round, but I also live in a part of California that is not hot. So we can get away with that. Growing up in the Central Valley, you would not have, you wouldn't have caught me. You would have had to pay me to get that cooker going in July. So, but you can pressure can all year round. It's your tolerance to the heat generated by something boiling for an hour that is the determiner.
All right. Do we have any additional questions? Otherwise, I can. Oh.
I'm waiting for
While we're
for
waiting,
a
I
bid
will.
from the audience going, what? Okay.
I was going to say for next month's Ask a Master Food Preserver, I believe our leadoff talk, we're going to talk a little bit about pickling fruit,
Mhm.
because you can do more than make jam.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, join us for that.
And on that, we go on to the upcoming events. We have preserving strawberries, preparing, dehydrating, and freezing coming up on the 10th at 7 to 8. We also, on that same day, have preserving stone fruits, which is hosted by the San Mateo and San Francisco counties, but that's at 4 to 5. If you want to do back to back, you have that option. Then we also have preserving strawberries, fruit leathers, and jams coming up on the 17th. From 7 to 8 o'clock. And if you want to see this recording, we will have it put up on our past events online. So you can see what we've done tonight. You can also see all the other things, jams, pickles, and pressure canning as well when it's all put up and edited. And we'd like you to stay connected to us. So join our newsletter and you will get in your emails every month a newsletter on this particular topic. Join us on our Facebook, follow our Instagram. And if you would like to become a master food preserver, you have that option as well. You can either scan the QR code or you can click on the link, which I believe will be sent to you as well. And please, please, please be sure to fill out this at the end of the Zoom because it helps us and it's one of the main things that helps us improve as a group. So thank you for coming and asking us all your questions. So if you have any other questions, this is the time to get them out before we end the thing. So thank you. Oops. How is it? Oops. I don't know how I'm still sharing. And how is she?
What kind of canning are you getting ready to do, Shalinda? Anything? Are you a jam
I
maker? I know you need sauerkraut.
Actually, I'm doing grandma's golden relish. That is my next thing coming up. I've already finished my blueberry and strawberry, and I still have to do 2 batches of cherry.
I did a strawberry cherry blend last year, mostly because I had strawberries and cherries to use up, and it was really good. It was good enough I'll do it again, which I would not have expected that. It was a really pleasant surprise. Um,
So
that was an
Shalinda, what
experiment.
is the golden, what did you say?
Grandma's
Golden.
golden relish. It's a ball recipe, and what it has is cucumbers, onions, some turmeric. I'm missing something. Oh, bell peppers. That's what it was. And it makes this golden relish that goes great on like burgers, fries, anything. My husband was so upset with me last year when I told him to toss it because we had a heat wave and it made the cans. I don't know what I did. I left them out on my counter. And so they got too hot and they started to bubble. And I said, nope, you're gone. It was
Oh.
weird. It was the first time it had ever happened. It was still sealed, but
Mm.
I was just like, no.
You know what,
Yeah.
though, Shalinda? I think I'm glad you mentioned that because pickle relish is what, or pickle relishes. Um, so many of us think about pickle relishes just being that stuff you buy in the store, and homemade pickle relishes, and there's lots of different recipes for them, are like so much. Like I would not say it, in my opinion, it's not worth your time to make ketchup. Like ketchup tastes like ketchup, but pickle relish is one of those things. It is so good when it's homemade, and that golden relish sounds delicious. Sounds
It
like
is.
it's just exactly like what every sandwich needs.
I cracked into the pickled green beans that we made during our lab, and they were super popular. They were really delicious.
People love dilly beans. I'm just not a fan.
Oh.
Whenever we've had to make those for train, I'm always just like,
Well, are you a green bean fan? Maybe it's the green bean thing,
no,
you know?
I'll eat them, but I had to
Okay.
learn how to like green beans when I had kids
Well, I
so
was
that I
surprised
would.
how crunchy they were. They were really tasty. Those were really very nice.
So I've heard.
Well, I'll take your dilly beans next time. So.
Please, I'll gladly. Dilly beans and a SCOBY.
Oh.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's so funny. What about you, Nina? Are you doing anything right now, canning wise?
Well, I think I sent you a picture. I dehydrated some apricots. I think I
Yeah.
might have emailed it to you or put it in the box in case somebody wanted to post it on the. So I compared using the ascorbic acid. I compared using the ascorbic acid and the honey dip. Like a little honey solution, and I thought the honey solution had a little better color. And that was the same experience I had when I dehydrated some persimmon slices. I thought the honey dip resulted in a brighter color than following the ascorbic acid method.
Let me ask you a question though about the persimmons because I'm intrigued. Because persimmons have such a delicate flavor, does the honey dip interfere
I
with
think
it?
I
Like
even
is
put a little,
honey,
yeah, I
or is
think I
it-
even, no, it wasn't a problem. I think I also used a little, there was a recipe for that was back in the fall. So I'd have to look back at what I did with that. But I know with this apricots, I just did that recently. And, well, if I can, they're right over there.
Well, we actually have a question.
Yeah.
And it's an important one. And so it says, how do you know if a home preserved food has Clostridium botulinum?
Oh, that's an excellent question.
I've been
That's a
told
great
it's
question. And
tasteless
the answer
and
is you
odorless.
You
don't.
do not know. You have to rely on following the proper process for a low acid food to avoid that.
So here's the thing. Clostridium botulinum is a naturally occurring bacteria and it's all around us all the time. It's in the soil. It's a normal thing. The issue is it can only, in a kind of simplest, putting this simply, it can only really reproduce itself in an anaerobic, low acid environment. So it needs to have no air, moisture, and a lack of acid, which is exactly what you create in, say, a can of beans. So that's why it's so important that low acid foods are pressure canned to a high and for the correct amount of time at the right pressure so that it's getting to the right temperature, which is a minimum of 240 degrees, and for a long enough time to kill off any spores that made it into that can before they can start to reproduce, produce their toxin, and the toxin is what makes you sick. So, because in the environment, again, in the room I'm in right now, there may be some, but it's essentially inert because it does not have the environment it needs to thrive. And the whole point of pressure canning low acid foods is to make sure that inside that jar, which is an environment that would allow this particular bacterium to thrive, you have heated it up hot enough and for long enough that you essentially kill it and then you're good to go because it is colorless, flavorless, and odorless. And the thing to be clear on is that the botulism, the disease caused by Clostridium botulinum, is not common, but it is exceedingly dangerous. So it's just important. And if you follow, again, a tested recipe and you follow the directions for properly pressure canning, you will be good to go. And this is why, though, for example, you'll see all over the internet that it's fine. You'll see people pressure canning dried beans. So they just take the dried beans, right in the jar, little water, lid on, right? Except the problem is that because you haven't soaked the beans, you may not get enough heat penetration. A tested recipe will always tell you soak the beans first because you want to hydrate the beans a little bit because we know that if they're hydrated when they go in the jar with the water and then are pressure canned at the right temperature, the right pressure, depending on your altitude, for the right amount of time, it'll be fine. It is not hard to do it correctly, and it's definitely worth your effort to do a little research before you start and make sure you're using a good recipe.
All right. I did see a question about the Zoom post-event survey. So when you leave the room, this nice little picture here will pop up. And if you'll just please, please, please answer those questions, it would help us greatly. And thank you.
And Marta says, thank you.
Right. So we've come to the end of our presentation, our Q&A. And if you have any other questions, this is the time to get them out. Otherwise, thank you and have a wonderful night.